to the Creation Evaluation Station. On this episode of Impromptu Review, we are going to be reviewing and discussing a Jurassic World Dominion. Now, if you're not familiar with my channel, I do reviews of models and construction kits, both new and old, mostly Lego, other properties as well, and, as in this case, do discussion and reviews of other creative works such as movies, video games, and cartoons. So I have been reviewing the Jurassic World Dominion Lego sets. This is not those. This is actual movie review this time. I might do an extra video regarding the Lego sets and the movie at some point in time, since I can have to do them kind of retrospectively. I still have more sets to do, but I kind of need to talk about the old ones or not old ones, but the ones that I've done already in regards of the movie. But that is for another video. This one is just on the movie. So my quick thoughts. I enjoyed the movie. It was a fun ride, and I liked it better than the last one. Quick summation of the past movies. Regards to Jurassic World, which I'll talk. As far as Jurassic Park, I've enjoyed all the movies to some extent. I think in these last three, the Jurassic World trilogy, so to speak, this one and the first one, I think I like this one the best. I almost have to watch the first one again. There's some really good stuff in the first one too. The second one was not as good, which I do need to talk a little bit more about that, because it kind of pertains to this movie, because it's immediate predecessor. But I think I'll talk more about that on in the spoiler section, which, by the way, there will be a spoiler section. There'll be a warning popping up here on the screen. I'll tell you, so don't go past that if you haven't seen the movie. I do recommend that you go see the movie. It's enjoyable. It's better than the last one, so if you didn't like the last one, that's okay. But if you have enjoyed the movies overall as a whole, you're going to enjoy this one. If you've seen the old ones, definitely going to enjoy this. A certain aspect of this, since they do call back to the older characters. I don't think that's too much. We bring back the older characters from the Jurassic Park series, and I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, because they've shown it a lot in the trailers. Now what they do with them and stuff like that we won't talk about here. But yeah, so overall, I enjoyed this movie. The second movie, the previous one, it was okay, but not as good as this one. And I talk more about that in spoilers, and I'll just say that second one, it felt like it was just a quick roller coaster ride and put everything into position for this movie, at least while I was watching it. More to come in the spoilers. But that's what I thought of that movie when I first had seen it. It's like they've already taken the characters, so they don't need to establish too much new ones. I mean, they did introduce some new ones, but they weren't super important. They were there. And maybe that's it. We didn't even get a chance to really get in touch with them. They were characters, personalities. They were following those traits, but they were pretty two-dimensional. I think they were thought out, and they could have been more in-depth, but they just didn't really dwell. We didn't see it in the movie because there was so much focus on action and pushing the plot forward to get to the end of the movie, where we're setting everything up for the next one. But I'm not reviewing that. That's just my overall thoughts on that to hear. And it is important a little bit later on in the video when I talk about the stuff in the spoiler section. But This one is not quite so as much fast paced. It's, I think, a longer movie overall. But yeah, it was really enjoyable popcorn flick for the most part. Like, it had, there was a little bit more substance to it than a regular popcorn flick. Not a lot, but it was in there. Although you actually have to think about it, and I could see people shutting their brain off and just watching it, which you can do. You can enjoy it just by doing that. You don't have to think about things too much. I, on the other hand, was more aware of things. I'm going to address something here that is not directly tied to the movie, but it's a lot of press has already come out before the movie came out, and they were talking about there's been complaints about the Locust in the story, and like, it actually isn't a very important part. Yes, there's still plenty of dinosaurs, but there's more going on than just dinosaurs, and I talk more about that in the spoilers, but those bugs are important too, and it feels like these people haven't even watched the movie. So, if you hear anything about bugs and people giving negative vibes about the movie, don't listen to them. We'll just say that for now. If you haven't seen it yet, we're going to talk more about them bugs later. They are important to the story and the theme and other stuff going on in the movie. Now, like I said, I enjoy it. My overall complaint isn't with this specific movie. This was enjoyable. It's the series as a whole. And I'll probably go into a little bit more depth in the spoilers, but in general, it felt like whatever story they were setting up with the other movies, both the first and second, got thrown out the window for this movie. Things that totally changed between the two. Now, this movie is good on its own, but when you put it with the other ones, it feels like they retconned their story developments. I'm gonna spoilers for the previous movies here, because I gotta talk a little bit about it just so I get my point across here. Even though I'm going to tell more about it in the spoiler section. The previous two movies were definitely it felt like they were going with the storyline about humans weaponizing these dinosaurs. The whole program with the raptors in the beginning, the first movie, to be able to train them, to learn them, and then in the second movie we have them building an advanced raptor and trying to control it. They need Blue to get the maternal pattern or whatever, so it would make it easier to control them and all that. And in this movie, that gets sidestepped. Blue is still important, though, but not for the reasons that they have set up in the past. Yeah, so it seems like there was a total switch. I can't say more about what they switched to, but it was a switch from that story setup. I know afterwards I was kind of excited for this third movie, and yes, I still enjoyed it, even though my expectations weren't met from what I was thinking they were going to. That's the thing. Your expectations from what you've seen in the first two movies might get twisted a little bit. Might not come to fruition, because I was expecting maybe a fully weaponized dinosaur here, that they've gotten control of. They're using it to maybe even start their whole dinosaur army or something. I don't know. It almost gets a little bit corny, or I'm gonna say corny or crazy, sci-fi aspect of weaponizing dinosaurs and stuff like that. And I don't know. That's pretty much where it felt like they were going, though, with the story and the previous ones. They were a little bit more grounded, but then, you know, you start taking this technology far enough and things are going to get out of control. But that's not happened in this movie. And like I said, doesn't mean it's a bad movie. In fact, it does clean up a lot of loose ends from the previous movies, from the Jurassic Park movies, and continues on to with some of those themes, opposed to what they were setting up in the Jurassic World series. And that's the only really bad thing I feel about the story, is that they just didn't continue on with their storyline. If they wanted to do that, then they should have made a 4th movie or something. Because it's like they hit the brakes. And it's interesting to think about it, because they still used elements that they had set up from the previous movie to make the story elements for here, but it felt like they took it in a different direction to do so, and it, like I said, feels like a retcon. Before I get any further into that, it's time for the spoiler warning. So, spoilers! Flash across the screen, I'm sure it's here. Okay. I am going to talk more about the story and stuff. We'll do that a little bit later. First, I'm going to talk about the dinosaurs. And I don't know if I had to save them for the spoilers. So if anybody accidentally leaks over to the spoilers here, they'll probably still on the safe side. Because I kind of wanted to talk about the dinosaurs. And if you had, but most of them were shown in the trailers, have been leaked beforehand. I was hoping we'd see something in the movie that we hadn't seen before in the trailers or anything else. Now, there were a couple things, but they weren't big things, which I will talk about too in a little bit here. But the dinosaurs, they looked good. That's special effects wise. They looked pretty good. Both this one and the second one had much better special effects with the dinosaurs. And I don't think the special effects weren't bad with the first one. They were just lacking, not polish, because that's the problem. They were too polished. There's polish, and then there's movie quality polish. Like, you know, you can get away making a cartoon and making all the dinosaurs look pretty. But when you put them in a real life world with backgrounds and stuff, and more importantly, all the camera tricks and not camera tricks, but camera optics, you know, like distance and stuff like that. Like, there were scenes where the raptors in the background, no, not in the far background, but just like in the, I'd say, mid-ground, and you have the humans standing in front of it looking at it, and you kind of have an over-shoulder shot. Now, the humans should be in the focus for the most part, and the dinosaur should be a little bit further away. It should be a little bit fuzzier. But no, it's clear as a bell. Like, it, and that type of thing happened a lot in the first Jurassic World movie. And I have a feeling a lot of it was post-production. They didn't go through and try to fix that. I mean, they got the placement and everything else right. And yes, the dinosaurs looked good, but they looked too good. Not integrating it good enough into the scene. Now, both the second one and this film did a much better job of that. There were a couple shots, which, you know, it's hard because there are so many shots. Something might have gotten missed. But there were a couple shots that were a little off. I could think of one. Yeah, the spoiler section, so I can talk about it when the Blue is talking to Owen, and yes, talking. Well, they're you know, conversing the way they do, and then Blue runs off into the forest, and something about that didn't feel quite right. Like Blue wasn't totally into that picture. It's almost like, which they probably may use a similar tactic, but it's usually like bad green screen. It wasn't quite that effect, but you can tell when the green screen is used sometimes in the older stuff, and that's what it felt like. Like the dinosaur wasn't quite right there, but there was only I could maybe think of 2 or 3 scenes, and some of it was in the action scene, so it's really quick. So you don't necessarily even know, or I can't recall particularly what happened. And it's only like, you know, a couple frames maybe even of action that happens in, because there's a lot of quick action in here, and some of the scenes are great and stuff like that. What I mean by stuff like that, I don't know. But there were some great action scenes, but they're really quick scenes, and sometimes something got missed in those scenes. So yeah, the dinosaurs looked good for the most part. Now there's questions of some of their behaviors and the actual look of the dinosaurs. Let's see, where shall I start? I guess that my biggest problem, which I've seen even before the movie, because I've seen toys and action figures and things like that for the there's Xenosaurus, the guy with the big claws. He needs a manicure. I don't think that was a good dinosaur to pick for this movie. I know they want the big giant claws, and they used it. They played with them. Some of it didn't make sense, but whatever. That dinosaur was a big jerk. I mean, you first see it, it flicks a deer, which kills it, but flicks the deer with one of its giant claws, just so it could eat the grass that the deer was eating. Or plants. We don't know if it was exactly grass there. Because this thing is a herbivore. And the problem is, we don't know enough about this dinosaur. There hasn't been very good complete fossils. We have the big arms with the big claws, and that's most of it. I've got to look in to see if there's any newer research, but either way, I don't think they have a complete skeleton. Like, I'm not even sure they know what the head looks like. So there might be even an assumption it's eating plants. I think the dinosaur is just the wrong choice because we don't know what it is. So how do you make it look and act lifelike if you don't even know what it looks like? I mean, you can make assumptions about creatures when you see them, but when you can't even see them, you're pretty much making up an animal, like a mythological beast or something. And the way they treated it at the end was kind of funny. The fight at the end with the Gigantosaurus, or however you pronounce it, Giganotosaurus, I think that's how they pronounced it. Which I've been pronouncing it wrong. If you've seen my other videos with it in the one Lego video, I pronounced it wrong. Yeah, that it was kind of funny and corny how they did it, and I kind of laughed, but yeah. The getting the Gigantosaurus, Giganotosaurus pretty much impaled on his claws was kind of funny. it makes you wonder what those claws for. I mean, I've talked with my wife, and we're thinking, those claws probably were not meant for killing animals. Probably used for digging or something. I mean, just looking at the creature, they'd look awkward. And despite them being so large, it's not like those could keep a really good edge on them because they are so big and cumbersome. I don't know, but that was, I feel like, a wrong choice, but I understand they wanted something a little bit different in there. And then, of course, we had to have our new alpha, who's even bigger than a T-Rex, of course. This one was not created. It's a legit dinosaur, which that's one thing that took me off. I thought we'd get some kind of other human-made mutation, but that's part of the whole changing the story through the series. I honestly think T-Rex could take him. That's my personal opinion. I have a feeling it even looks like a giant alligator with the armor and stuff like that, which alligators are not active hunters. They skulk in the water, they wait for the prey to come to them. They're opportunist hunters, and I have a feeling that's what this guy was. T-Rex is another story. And I'm going to get all paleontological on you here, even though I do not have a PhD or anything in it. I have many years of looking at stuff. But the T-Rex looks like a killing machine. And what we do know of, like, its muscle attachments, this guy was ripped. Literally. He was sinew and muscle and everything else, with largest bite capacity and everything else. He was designed to take down big animals. I have a feeling, although the Gigantosaurus was bigger than him, a T-Rex, if the Gigantosaurus ambushed him, then maybe. But if the T-Rex managed to survive the ambush and then get immediately killed, that the T-Rex could probably take on the Gigantosaurus and kill him, and just have to get his jaws on his neck, around his neck. It'd probably be a bit of a struggle and fight, but yeah, I think a T-Rex could actually take him, even though it's the bigger dinosaur. I mean, you look at the Gigantosaurus; its jaws really don't seem, even though it's just bigger overall. It's just a big bully, all size and no action. Well, the T-Rex, large in its own right, may not be as big. Is designed much more for hunting, active hunting. I've said, well, yeah, going and hunting bigger animals. Still doesn't mean they didn't go for the smaller animals, the weaker ones and stuff, but I think a T-Rex could have taken him. But that's my personal opinion. That's what I was waiting for when the T-Rex, especially when the T-Rex came back. And you thought, oh no, he died, but no, he woke back up, which was okay. They could have done that scene just a little bit different, with the T-Rex opening its eye. I felt like cinematically it wasn't done right. Like, maybe the music needed to be different. It's like there was something about it that it could have been done differently. Because you need a shock moment when the eye opens back up. It's like, oh no, he's dead. Of course, when you're kind of focus the camera on him long enough, he's going to wake back up. But that's what I was hoping to, is as the Gigantosaurus's attention were on the Xenosaurus, that the T-Rex would take advantage of his distraction and go for the night. Yes, probably goes right along with my thoughts on the T-Rex versus the Indominus Rex. The T-Rex probably could have taken him, maybe. But I liked how that one ended. That was good. It was unexpected and kind of awesome at the same time. Now, moving beyond the dinosaurs, because there were more than just dinosaurs in this movie, more creatures than dinosaurs in this movie. And I'm not even talking about the Locust, although we're going to get there. No, I'm talking about, like, the Dinosaurs. Those were not dinosaurs. And then there was that, I don't remember the name of the creature, unfortunately. Focus was already on dinosaurs, and I memorized their names more than some of the other creatures. I managed to Dimetrodon, but the weird-looking dog critter there that was in the black market that got the bad guy's arm there. Got his name as well. That creature that got his other arm. There was the, what was it, raptor type thing, or was that the baby? I think that was the young Carnotaurus that got one arm, but then the other critter got his other. That other critter is not a dinosaur. It is a mammal-like reptile, but they weren't dinosaurs. And I found it interesting they put them in the movie, really, because they're really less recognizable. Well, not the Dimetrodon so much. A lot of people recognize the Dimetrodon with his giant sail. But yeah, that other thing, that critter escapes me, I was surprised to see that in there. Yeah, they put less notable creatures in there. And also, in regards to dinosaurs, I hope people will stop complaining that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park World don't have feathers, because they got feathers in this movie. If you haven't figured out yet, I am a bit of a dinosaur nerd. But there has been some really, really fanatic dinosaur nerds out there that complain about the lack of feathers. I'm like, oh, just give it up. Maybe it's because I'm older and I remember when the dinosaurs were not thought to even have feathers, and stuff like that. Maybe that's why it doesn't bother me as much, but it's fine. But they should be happy now. They have dinosaurs with feathers, and ones that even live in cold climates and whatever, and swim like penguins in the water. That was a bit shocking. So the bugs, the locusts. Like I said, there have been a lot of things. Oh, what does that have to do with dinosaurs, whatever else? Well, it has to do with the plot of the Jurassic World and overall story of this whole entire franchise to some extent. It calls back to the original. I would say that it's more closely related to the original than all the other movies in this aspect, because the whole point of Jurassic Park is is kind of a story showing the potential problems with genetic engineering. And the whole Locust storyline goes right along with that. This is important to Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. That's why I see people, or I see media and stuff talk about it. Now, I think there's something else going on why they're talking about it, and that's a little bit conspiratory, and I have my theories, and we're not going in there because this is just a movie review. But don't be turned off because there's bugs in the movie. They're there for a purpose. It's part of the story. It's part of the narrative that they're writing into the storyline, that genetic engineering is not good. That has been really the main story of Jurassic Park, the first book, for a long time. That's why the book was written, not for just dinosaurs. So I mean, these locusts eat everything except for biosyn products. And this is the use of genetic power for bad, and to gain political and economic power by using genetically engineered creatures. But they open an even bigger can of worms in this movie. We have the bugs, and biosyn is using it, and yes, they don't seem to be doing anything with it, but this is why Ellie is rounding up, Dr. Grant, and trying to get in here and get a sample and do everything else with the plot, is because this is very dangerous. And there's something even worse that's man. We'll not go there yet. But yes, that's why the bugs are there, to show the dangers of this bioengineering. Not just making dinosaurs for war. That's actually not the most practical thing. Okay, you have deadly assassins. You still, our tanks and planes and everything else, the mechanical advantage over flesh is probably going to outperform the dinosaurs in the long run, even though there's some, other things, we don't know how strong the armor-plated dinosaurs could be, if they've been, enhanced genetically or whatever. But which is where I thought the previous movies were going. But this story with the Locust is a more practical and more reasonable and almost and realistic take on these the potential problems with genetic engineering. Before I go any further in that, because I am going to be talking about the big can of worms they open up with this movie, but we'll be leading into that with the next part here. With the overall theme of this danger of genetic engineering, which was the primary focus of the first movie, we've brought back the first movie's characters. And yes, there's a lot of nostalgia baked here, but it was done fairly well. Using this storyline is exactly what they needed, because this ties it back into the original movie. So it didn't feel, the nostalgia was there, but for a reason. It's kind of like what they did with Spider-Man No Way Home. The nostalgia was there, but it's there for a reason. Bringing the characters back and everything. Now, they tied up some loose ends. There's a relationship issue there with Grant and Sattler and Ellie Sattler. That was interesting to watch and had more happier ending for Grant, anyways, and maybe for Ellie as well. It's a lot of it was behind the scenes in the original book. I mean, don't really get any resolution whatsoever. So that's kind of like nice that we had this movie. You have Jurassic Park 3, where you see a little bit more of their relationship after the first one, and it's not what you would think, because she's apparently married somebody else. She's had kids with him. They have a family, and Grant is still doing his same old, which he's still doing his same old at this movie. But yeah, he gets there's some subtle character development in there, on both sides really, and some feelings that were probably there from the beginning, even though it was not the A plot, it was not the important part, were resolved. And that was nice. But that is not the only thing that got resolved from the original movies. Original series, or original movie. It's really that first movie, even though the other ones touch on it as well. Is what happens to Biosyn. Like, Biosyn was the main villain in the first movie. Now, the Jurassic Park, you could say, was already having its problems with the genetics, that they were acting abnormally. The dinosaurs, they didn't know how they behaved. You know, things weren't as strong. There was so many problems with the park, but with the dinosaurs. But what ultimately ended up destroying it was its Gentek's competitors, Biosyn. Dennis Nedry's actions, because he was working, well, nice. He wasn't directly working for them. He was double-crossing him, double-crossing Hammond. But it was Biosyn's interaction with the park that ultimately destroyed it, with Nedry shutting down things and his attempts to get the stuff off the island and whatever. So what happened with that? Well, this movie kind of explains and gives a proper ending to the Biosyn company, as far as I'm concerned, because they get pretty much destroyed. Now, they bring back Dodgson, which I didn't even realize that was who that was supposed to be. I knew there was some points that they were teasing at, but I didn't make the connection. Probably partially because it's been a while since I've seen the original trilogy. I never felt like he was a main central character, at least in the movies. Now, he was more in the books, but it's been a long time since I've read the books. I have both of them. I should sit down and read them again, although it's like they aren't that important to the movies, because at least not beyond the first movie, which is another interesting point I might bring up. But right now, yeah, Dodgson. He's an interesting character in this, and I didn't know what his deal was. I just knew that they were focusing on him. I thought he was a new character in the movie. But either way, he was in charge of Biosyn. That's another thing. I didn't felt like that Dodgson back in the day was part of was the head of Biosyn, or was anybody higher up. Now, as many years have passed, so maybe he's moved up in the ranks. He just felt like a, in-between management guy who was in between whoever is the head of Biosyn and was, passing out the orders and stuff. But they tied up that loose end from the series, is whatever happened to Biosyn. And we find out that he somehow did get the DNA from Nedry. Although obviously Nedry did not survive. But he pretty much suffered the same fate as Neji, which is kind of apropos. That was really good. But yeah, that was another loose end that was tied up. And like I said, the story itself continues kind of the purpose of the original Jurassic Park, to saying, hey, this genetic engineering stuff is bad. That was the point of the Locust. Like I said, that's the point of the bugs. So continues that storyline. It gets, a pretty good conclusion. Now that brings us to Wu, who is not a bad guy in this, and this is where I'm realizing that this is really something's going wrong with the story overall. The self-contained story in this movie was fine. It's the overall story. But yeah, Dr. Wu, he gets his redemption arc in here, sort of. He's already apparently changed, because this is what's bothered me. In the first two Jurassic World movies, I'm talking about Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, he didn't seem to be, but it was very heavily hinted that he is purposely altering these dinosaurs, something he wasn't doing in Jurassic Park. It was more accidental, the weird things that were going on, but that he's purposely, he's advanced the science enough or whatever, that he's purposely alternating these things to create weapons of war, to give them even bigger powers than they would, strengths than they would normally have. And this movie, there's none of that. He's suddenly turned a new leaf. He's more concerned about the environment and stuff like that. And he's trying to solve this problem, which I feel like they might have cut some scenes, which they might have done that help explain this more, because they had already made these locusts and they had let them loose. And though we don't know what exactly was going on with that, but that's like the backstory is kind of got to be pieced together in the movie from what little we've seen. But yeah, Dr. Wu, who has previously been arrogantly playing God. He's not playing God here. He's more concerned about fixing a terrible mistake. But yeah, his character seems, I mean, that's all right. That maybe he has some character development off screen. It just feels very jarring. And then, like I said, this has sidetracked whatever main story and themes they were trying to get across with the first two movies, weaponizing dinosaurs and such. And yeah, I don't know what to think about that. But that leads up to the leads us back to the bugs, the importance of the bugs, and the change in the tone of the movie. But also takes us circular back to the original Jurassic Park, where it's against the errors of genetic manipulation, the errors, the problems, the potential evil. And it's kind of funny because they do retcon the whole, the world's gonna be destroyed because dinosaurs are on the planet. And to be honest, what happens makes more sense in this movie in a realistic way. And that's kind of moving into the end of the movie, is they round up, at least a lot of the dinosaurs are rounded up into this sanctuary, but there's still dinosaurs out there. And they pretty much end up integrating into ecosystems. And this is exactly what would happen, just like when even today in modern animals, is modern animals from another continent will get migrated into a different continent. They'll either survive or they'll die off, or, you know, in survival, they will find their own niche in there. They may kill off indigenous populations, but eventually things will balance out, and the ecosystem overall is not going to collapse because they're there. There will be a balance more, and that's exactly what kind of happens with the dinosaurs at the end of this. Because that's exactly what would happen if dinosaurs happen. I mean, they're not gonna... I mean, the Planet Eaters aren't going around just start killing everybody. I mean, yeah, there's going to be accidents, but there's accidents with deer every year as well. So that ends up getting sidelined, and that. But there is a bigger can of worms that is opened up in this. Not just the Locust. The Locust, like I said, political, economic power. That's why this was shown as how this could happen. But there's something more that's added. How they stop these locusts is by genetically altering them, already living organisms, so that they don't live past a single lifetime. So they'll just die out when they die. That's genetically altering another living organism. This is not cloning something and making a genetic copy, bringing it to life. This is altering something that's already living. That's even worse than anything that we've seen from Jurassic Park, whatever. And they downplay it. Okay, that's what stopped the grasshoppers, the locusts, and everything is fine. Well, let's hope Dr. Wu keeps that stuff to himself and doesn't start experimenting, because that is very dangerous technology. That is the ability to alternate, to change someone's genome, and you could cause them to die. And it's science lesson. Viruses are bad because they change your genetic code. That's why they attack cells and alter the DNA. That's how they make them sick. That's the body has got to get rid of them and everything else. Recently, we've had a pandemic caused by a virus. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I need to say. I know YouTube and everything else could be out there, but that is the power of the technology that they deal with here. Alternating genetic material. Yeah, it can be used for good, which is what happened here. Fix a mistake. But it could be used for bad. It could cause cancer. You could do it to make people dependent, automatically dependent, like a drug addiction on things. This is very big bad can of worms that's been opened up. They don't explore it, but that's what's opened up at the end of this movie. And I kind of gasped at that when they revealed what had happened with the maze and stuff like that. I don't know how many other people have caught on to that while sitting in the theaters. I didn't hear anybody else making noises. I mean, I didn't make super loud noise. I'm quiet, definitely compared to my wife. I can be rather noisy. And that leads me to my next point. Big plot hole. Less serious than what I just talked about, but big plot hole. Mace's mom. Her genetic predecessor. Her clone, whatever. Mom's not the clone, she's the original. Why didn't she just alter her own DNA and cure herself? Rather than making a clone and curing it. Now, this could be easily answered, but it's not. So it becomes a plot hole. I mean, there could be a point that whatever illness she had already degenerated her enough that altering her DNA was not going to fix the problem. That's fine. Just say that. Other than that, you know, why didn't she just fix herself? Was she too afraid to, so she did it on her daughter? Oh, yeah, but the way they've painted this mother character, that she wouldn't have done that. She wanted a child of her own as it is. So why would she use her child as a guinea pig? So yeah, that big plot, a big plot hole there. I realized that towards the end of the movie, as after its fact, but I'm, you know, digesting this while watching as the movie goes on. I facepalmed in the theater. My wife had no idea why I facepalmed. I told her afterwards, she's like, I was like, yeah, that's a bit of a plot hole. But does that break the movie? No, there's been dumber plot holes and other things, and it's more of a backstory plot hole than what's actually happening. I think, you know, overall, this was a good movie, entertaining movie, and it was playing, well, it was doing more than playing homage to the whole entire series, and I thought it was a great way to tie things up. I don't know if we'll get another one. I partially hope not, because this really ties a lot of things up, and we don't need more. I mean, there is the one can of worms they did open, but they kind of just swept it under the rug as soon as they opened it. Yeah, it fixed everything. Everything's done and over with. Goodbye. So that's my review. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on the movie as well, and on what I've had to say here. There's a lot to be said in context with this movie, and that's what makes it a little bit deeper movie than even some of the predecessors. Now is not as good as Jurassic Park, the original. That's pretty much it for my review here and discussion. Let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. This video's getting on pretty long here. And, you know, give this channel some YouTube love. And that's it here at the Creation Evaluation Station for me, Edwin, signing off and reminding you that creativity is key.